I go into private mode in the browsing and I look up this term that my friend told me. I type in LGBT, and that is that she too was bisexual, so that we could sit there and talk like girlfriends and hold hands and, you know, kiss. And I tell my mom that I am bisexual, implying that it is a phase that I'm going through. Hello, strangers of the internet, and welcome back to my channel. Or welcome to my channel, because apparently I have had an influx of new people here. So if you are one of those people, welcome. If you don't know, because you aren't one of those people, I've recently actually started a blog. It is my own website that I create content for. I started it earlier on in this week, and it was just something that I've always wanted to do. I've been a published writer before. I used to write poetry. I still write song lyrics, which I would love to do something with, but I don't really know how to. And yeah, life has just kind of been popping lately. So by the way, if you are here from my website, which I will be linking in the description box of this video if you would like to check out, but if you are here from my website, because apparently I'm getting a lot of new people, comment down below, let your girl know. I'm interested. What's up? What's the tea? Now, today's video is, honestly might be a little scatterbrained. I'm gonna do my best that I can with this. But this is a topic that I still am kind of dealing with in a way, learning more about in a way. So don't judge me too hard based off of this video. But the premise of this video really has to do with something that you may or may not know about me, and that is I am bisexual. Let it sink in for a second, okay? Now, you may be asking yourself a question. Brittany, didn't you mention before that you have a boyfriend? Yes, very keen observer, I do have a boyfriend. Pro tip when dealing with people that are bisexual, don't ever try to imply or think for a second that if you are dating a boy or a girl, that means that you no longer like the other, okay? Just because I have a boyfriend does not mean that I do not still like girls. I am bisexual. I'm not straight. When I've been with girls, which we'll get into some of that tea by the way, I wasn't a lesbian. I was still bisexual. So, be familiar with the term. Don't be ignorant. Be aware. Bisexuality. That's where we are. But this video is obviously more specific than that. If you read the title, this is a story that I've honestly never actually compiled together all of the pieces of this and really thought much about until I wanted to make this video. And with that being said, I've never actually really told anybody this whole story. There are parts of this story that people in my life might see and have absolutely no idea about that. So this might be a shock to some of those people. Another coming out, if you will, in a way. We're gonna start with, when did I kind of know? I didn't know, but it kind of started in elementary school. I would have my friends, you know, my guy friends, female friends, my best friends. But then there would be that one friend that I would just feel differently about. I would feel like they were a best friend, but even in more than a best friend kind of way, if that made sense. I would want to hang out with them every weekend. I would want to talk to them as much as I could. And it wasn't one of those things as a girl where you really are jealous of someone and you're interested in them because you want to be more like them. It wasn't any of that. I just felt differently, but I couldn't tell you how, and I didn't know what that meant. So I just kept that to myself. And then the next kind of tip-off was watching TV shows growing up. You know, we all had childhood crushes. And I found myself really torn with a particular show. And that show was Zoe 101. I had like a crush on the guy that played Chase in the show, you know, the guy that wanted to be with Zoe. But I started to realize that I also felt that way about Jamie Lynn Spears, like the girl that plays Zoe in the show. I realized I also kind of felt the same way about her. I felt the same about her in a way that I did about the guy, and that really confused me. That made no sense to me. I was like, that's also kind of how I feel about this one friend. And now I'm just starting to spin in my mind. I'm starting to have so many questions. And at this time, honestly, in my house, I didn't have internet, so there was no looking this stuff up. And it wasn't something that I was going to talk to people about, because as far as I knew in my life at this point, being in elementary school, there was only straight. That was it. That was the thing. You were just straight. We just all were in my elementary school mind. Now, this is where things start to kind of evolve for my thinking, kind of start to click and make a little bit more sense for me. My mom and my grandma had a woman that they were really good friends with. And I would consider her like an aunt in my life. She means a lot to me. And she'd never, you know, brought any men around. She wasn't married, and she was my mom's age, you know. So I used to wonder about that as a kid, but nobody ever gave me an answer on that. They would just say things like, well, she's busy working. She doesn't really date much, you know. And at a point, I started to kind of get an idea. One particular time, because she lived in a different state than us, so she would come visit us, okay? And I was always so excited to see her. We were like best friends. I loved her, okay? Like I said, like an aunt, cool aunt. So she lived out of state, and she came to visit us. And she brought her friend with her. And I remember thinking to myself how interesting, I guess that is, or different to me, because, you know, my mom doesn't bring her friends with her when she goes to visit people, and, you know, I never really knew of anyone doing that. So that's when I started to be a little bit, you know, confused, kind of. I started to question. I started to think maybe it's not just her friend. I saw them interact. I saw this connection between them that couples have, you know? And although, you know, nobody was outright saying it to me, I kind of thought maybe. So, like I said, she lived in another state, so we would keep in touch. We would talk on the phone, we would keep in touch, and just like she would generally see how I was doing and like ask me what was going on in life and things like that. And I remember one night we were talking on the phone, and I had the thought of maybe this is the time that I should ask her or see if she will say something to me. Maybe I'm right, and this woman that she brought isn't just her friend, but her girlfriend, okay? So, you know, I'm having this conversation with her, and she's asking me if there's anyone that I'm interested in at school. And I tell her that there is actually someone that I kind of have a crush on, but that it's very complicated, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, how other people would feel about it, and if it was a good idea to even try to talk to people about it. So I asked her to give me advice based on her relationship at the time that she was in that I've heard about. And she just like switches and completely diverts the conversation and tries to get off of the phone. And to me, I'm sitting here thinking, wow, she probably knows what I'm thinking, and she probably thinks that's awful, that it doesn't make sense. Maybe she's gonna say something to my mom. Is my mom gonna say something to me? And I'm realizing to myself that this is just not something I'm going to talk to people about. It's not something to think about, talk about, act on. It's not going to happen. This kind of goes on, and I kind of just keep hush hush. But again, like I said, there is this one friend who I feel this way towards. And I'm just really suppressing that, okay? But she's like my best friend in her eyes, and in my eyes, she is just everything that I want and makes me so happy, but in kind of a weird, wrong way that I don't understand. So I ended up it was 4th grade, like end of 4th grade, before summer. That friend of my mom's came to visit again. And this time she brought her friend again with her. I remember I was sitting, we were at my grandma's house, and I used to go chat alone with her. Like, we would just chat, we were friends, my family knew that. And so I remember sitting in my grandma's house in a room, just the two of us, and we were chatting, and basically told her that when I had called her that day and I was asking those questions, I told her that I was trying to ask her basically if this woman was more than a friend. And she ends up telling me yes, but she didn't know if she could tell me, if she could say anything, etc. And so now I know that this is a thing, that this is real, these are valid feelings, other people have them, and it's not all just the black and white straight that I thought. But at this point too, I'm still confused because she is a lesbian, and I still have the idea that I think I also like boys. So this friend of mine, we were best friends, we hung out every weekend, we stayed at each other's houses 24/7. We would do it on school nights. Like, we did everything together. She was my best friend in the world. I loved her. Like, but I loved her, okay? So I will never forget this, and I don't think I've ever told anybody this story before. So this is probably just between her and I, really, and now I guess anyone who watches this video. And I remember that I went to her house one day, and she lived in a plan, and this plan had like a park and tennis courts and things, and you could like kind of walk around them if you wanted to. It was like an outdoor area for people that lived in this plan of townhomes. I remember that I had decided I wanted to talk to her that day, and I wasn't going to tell her that I had feelings for her. I was going to see if maybe I could talk to her about some of my thoughts and get an idea of where she was at. But in my mind, I was really hoping that the conversation would go her telling me that she actually loved me too, and that I wouldn't have to say it, because by me telling her that I'm kind of having like some thoughts, but not particularly about her, that if she's having thoughts particularly about me, that maybe she'll tell me and we'll fall in love and life will be happy and things will be right and it'll all be okay. So I went to her place and I knew I was gonna tell her, and y'all, I have never been so just like scared to tell somebody something, to talk about something, as I was to talk to her. Because at this point, I still didn't know that bisexuality existed. I still thought it was straight or lesbian. That is my knowledge at the time. So at this point, I had decided that because I knew that I loved her, I must be a lesbian, right? So I remember going over and telling her that I needed to tell her something, and I was really scared to tell her. And she's, telling me that I can tell her anything, she's never gonna judge me, and this was probably one of the first panic attacks I ever remember having. And I made her walk with me around these tennis courts and park, because like being confined in her house was too much for me. Like, I couldn't handle it. Basically, we're walking around, and I must have made this girl do like 30 laps around this, and the whole time she's just like, tell me what it is, what's up, what do you have to tell me, just tell me, you're freaking me out, why are you freaking out so bad? And I'm sitting there obviously freaking out. So I start to finally tell her about some of my thoughts about girls, and that, I think that I might be a lesbian, which she knew what that was, and that I was very confused and struggling. This was kind of me opening it up for her to talk to me about what she thought of this, her feelings that she might have, etc. And she basically just told me that you should really do more research into that world. And she said the world of LGBT, which I didn't know what that was at the time. Duh. So, she tells me that I should look more into this because some people don't understand it, judge it, don't think it's okay, etc. And that I shouldn't probably tell anyone else until I've really looked into it and kind of figured my shit out. So, what does any child do? I go to my grandma's house and I get on her internet because, again, we didn't have internet for some stupid fucking reason that I'll never understand. Go on her internet and I go into private mode in the browsing. And I look up this term that my friend told me. I type in LGBT and all of these pages come up and I'm reading about it and I'm learning about it and I'm hearing people tell their stories about it and I'm seeing this being real, these couples and these people being real out in the world, living their life, having the same thoughts as me. And that made me feel okay about it. Now, at this point, after doing research and realizing and taking stupid online quizzes, because that was a thing really hard back then, sorry, I realized that what I was honestly probably bisexual. That was the first time I was realizing that. This was the summer between 4th and 5th grade. I'm realizing that I am bisexual. I knew. This was the time that I knew. Definitively. It was never a question after this. I knew. 5th grade comes around, you know, we go to a new classroom, we get all new students in our classroom, so you're like hanging out with different people, sitting by different people, talking to different people, because my school was so big that we would have like every grade level had 5 different classrooms, and that was just in that school because we had 3 elementary schools too. So at my school alone, there were 5 groups of 5th graders, 5 classes of us with teachers. So I'm meeting all the new people in my class that I hadn't met before, and you know, the year's going on and everything's, you know, business as usual. I'm not talking about it to anyone, but I am still actively looking up the world of media in that and learning about that and figuring out my thoughts on that and my feelings about it and just kind of getting that situated in my mind, getting that clarity of like, yes, you are bisexual, I'm sure. But then, you know, something interesting happens. We end up getting a girl who transfers into our school from a different state. She's out of state, transfers to our school, ends up in my class. And her and I start to actually become friends because I was always that person that like, you're the new kid at school, I'm gonna be your best friend because you should not have to go it alone just because you fucking moved. That's awful. So yeah, just a little lesson out there, don't be an asshole to people. Her and I start to become friends, and I realize that her and I have a lot in common. You know, we like a lot of the same shows and movies. We think the same jokes are funny. We like to look at the same websites. We like the same magazines, the shit at the time. We listen to a lot of the same music, a lot of this stuff, and her and I end up starting to hang out a lot. And keep in mind, I was still really good friends with the girl who I initially loved and told. So her and I were still very good friends, but I knew that she didn't feel that way. I knew that. So I had really like moved on from that idea of that ever being a thing. And so I'm hanging out with the girl who had transferred in that I became friends with. And I remember we were at her parents' house and we were up in her room, we were hanging out, and we were listening to like, I don't even remember, but we were listening to like old school jams, okay? We're sitting there hanging out, listening to music, and we're just kind of chatting. And at this point, I feel like we've become so close that maybe I could say something to her. And I tell her that, hey, you know, you've been so open with me. You tell me all your secrets. You tell me everything about your life. We talk all the time. We're best friends. I feel guilty that there's something I haven't shared with you. And I end up telling her. She hits me back with something I was completely not expecting. And that is that she too was bisexual. She had realized it in like 3rd, 4th grade. She knew. She had realized it in like 3rd or 4th grade. Like she knew. And she had never told anyone, never talked about it with anyone. And you know, I had had one person that I shared that with. She had no one. So we end up talking about this and the things we've learned, what we've seen in the LGBT community, and you know, pride and all of these amazing things. It's amazing because she kind of becomes my friend that I can talk to about this stuff. You know, we can talk about those childhood crushes in bisexual terms. I can tell her that I think that, you know, Ashley Tisdale is fucking cute and I would like to date her, because she was also a childhood crush of mine. Okay, Ashley Tisdale was a big play for me. I end up getting really close with her. We hang out all the time. We were like best friends otherwise, but now we're like really best friends. And then we realize that we're kind of maybe having some feelings for each other. This is something my mom definitely does not know. My mom definitely doesn't know this, so Mom, if you're watching, this is new information for you. Please don't bring it up to me or I'm gonna be so uncomfortable. But for the sake of anyone out there that this might help, I'm gonna put it out there anyway. Low-key, I had a girlfriend in like 5th grade. And come summer, we were spending every day together. I'd go to the pool because her family had a pass to the local pool and they could always bring a guest. So I'd go to the pool with her all the time. I would go to her house and like we would hang out, play in her like backyard because she had a bunch of like shit in the backyard to do. And like I would go hang out at her house all the time. And, you know, to everybody, we were best friends. But to her and I, we were more than best friends. We were girlfriends. Now, this goes a little further than just, you know, calling ourselves girlfriends. So I remember very specifically that we would always go to this pool, like I mentioned, and we would kind of go because her mom would take us and her mom would go chill and do her own thing on all of these big lounge chairs on a big like grassy area. And so we kind of just ran wherever and like we kind of had hours to just, you know, fuck around, do whatever we wanted at the pool. So we would go into the like showers and, you know, because we didn't want anyone to know, obviously nobody knew, we didn't tell anyone, we didn't want people to see, we would actually like go into the showers and just like close the curtain and turn the shower on so that we could sit there and talk like girlfriends and hold hands and, you know, kiss. We would kiss. I did kiss her many times. Anyway, that goes on for a while and then middle school comes. So middle school comes and her and I kind of decide that we're not ready really to be out to people or to tell people, but this whole kind of just being low-key really sucks. So we decide that we're just gonna go back to being, you know, like best friends. Back in editing and wondering why I couldn't just be honest about what my feelings were even in middle school. Now middle school comes and I didn't really date in middle school, and that is because that's when I really struggled a lot with the bisexuality thing, and that mostly had to do with the anxiety of having to tell my mom or explain that to my mom. I didn't know how she would feel or react to something like that. At the end of middle school, the last day of 8th grade, one of my guy friends ends up asking me to be his girlfriend, and him and I end up dating like through freshman year, and then we break up after a year. I broke up with him. And I was single for a couple months, and then I started dating another guy because at this time I'm still not going to explain girls to my mom, so it's just easier in my life to only date guys. It's easier for me to only pursue that route. In high school, come sophomore year, I'm starting to tell my close friends. I'm starting to be open with my close friends, and they know. Every guy I've ever dated has known this about me. So basically, going into sophomore year, I start dating this other guy. What's up? It's your girl here in editing. My apologies, my camera here decided to die and I had to reset up and try to pick back up from where I was in the story. So enjoy, I'm gonna give it my best shot and don't judge me. Sorry, here, bye. So then, sophomore year, I date this boy for 2 months and it fizzles out and it's not really a big deal or relationship or anything. And at this time, I am actively interested in women, in girls. Like, there are girls in my school that I have crushes on. But I'm not telling anyone except my very best, close, little, small group of people, okay? And the guys that I dated, because I felt like I owed them that. I felt like they deserved to know everything about me and I shouldn't be keeping secrets from them. So I remember that guy and I broke up after the 2 months. I broke up with him, and right after that I was going on a camping trip with my family. And this was my mom, my stepdad, who is older than my mom and comes from just a much more traditional time. And we're on this camping trip and we're staying in a cabin, and my stepdad and my step siblings were out doing an activity, and I remember I was sitting in the cabin reading and my mom came in. I thought, you know what, if I'm gonna tell her, this is the time I should tell her, just in this place that I'm not gonna have this memory when I go home if I don't like this, if it doesn't go well. So I tell my mom that there's something I need to talk to her about and there's something that I want to tell her. And she tells me, of course, I can tell her anything, and what is it? And I tell my mom that I am bisexual. My mom's reaction, low-key, kind of killed me a little bit. Me knowing that she had that friend, that best friend who was like my aunt, that was a lesbian that she had known forever. I kind of had this semi-confidence of maybe my mom will get it, maybe she'll understand, she'll be accepting, she'll get it, it'll be great. And my mom basically just looked at me and said, I don't think you are. And that killed me. I was like, okay, so you don't think I am, but I think I am. So I'm telling you that. I'm telling you that I'm bisexual. And my mom basically does, that kind of usual thing people do when they hear that, of implying that it is a phase that I'm going through. And I just remember I went and I got in the shower. I remember that Panic at the Disco had just put out their new album, and I went and I took a shower and I just put the Panic at the Disco album on really loud and cried hysterically in the shower of this cabin because I was so just, it's hard. And I don't judge her for it. I don't blame her for it. It's really hard to understand that sort of thing if your kid comes to you like that and you aren't that familiar with it. And I mean, she'd seen me have boyfriends, I understand that. But what she didn't understand was why I'd only had boyfriends, which is also not something I think I've ever shared. So and I definitely, she doesn't know my reaction to this. So Mom, if you're watching this, I'm really sorry. I love you. Just don't bring this up to me, okay? So at that point, I decided that this was going to be something that my friends could know, but I wasn't going to talk about it with my family anymore. I didn't need to at this point. I wasn't going to talk to them about it. It was what it was, because I had started dating a guy again. And before you're all like, you're not a bisexual, I am still a bisexual just because I have dated mostly guys. There's a reason I have dated mostly guys. It was easier for me than having to explain to people that's a really big thing that weighs on you. That was something that was really hard for me to accept. That was something that I felt like my mom didn't even, you can't explain it to your mom. How do you tell the rest of your world that, you know? Just kept going on dating guys. That's what I did. So I dated a guy, and he was the first guy that I was ever physical with, but we never had sex. And then we broke up after a couple of months, and I started dating another guy. This is the relationship, if you've seen my other videos, this is the guy who cheated on me the day before / of our 3-year anniversary. It's that guy. So we start talking after I had broken up with the kid from before that was the first like physical but no sex. I start, you know, talking to this other guy, and him and I start, you know, kind of clicking, and he asks me if he can take me on a date. He takes me on a date, and at the end of the date he asks me if I can be his girlfriend. And I tell him that there are a couple of things that I want to tell him about before he, you know, chooses that, makes that decision. Because like I said, I felt like I owed that to people. I felt like I had to be upfront and tell people that. People aren't just openly accepted. People don't all want to date someone who's bisexual. There's a lot of stigmas about us, and that's something that I've also grown to deal with and to learn. I told him that I was bisexual, and also about like my very traumatic happenings and mental health and PTSD, depression, etc., whatever, okay? Tell him all this stuff. And I ask him, do you honestly still want to date me? And he says yes. That was kind of the first time that I realized that there are so many people who have these thoughts and think these things and just literally don't ever tell anybody or say anything. And I used to do it before I started telling people, in the way of leaving anonymous comments on YouTube videos of people telling their coming out stories. That would be my way of getting it out without having to tell people in my life or having people know. So in college, I had broken up, obviously, with dickhead. I started, you know, meeting people, guys and girls, and I started kind of going on dates and not telling anyone. To this day, I don't think my family or friends know that I did this. They know that I went on a couple dates with guys, but I did also go on a couple of dates with girls at the time too. You know, I was kind of in a time where I was figuring out, you know, that instead of liking vanilla or chocolate, I like swirl. I like it both. And that was my kind of time for that. And then I ended up dating the guy that I end up talking about in my Real Talk breakup advice video, which I'll put like somewhere up here. And we date. And you guys know that we broke up, obviously. And this was right after I had moved back into my parents' house after graduating college. I decided to go on Tinder. I wanted to meet people. I wanted to kind of go on dates. I wanted to do a little bit more casualness because I had always been this serious relationship girl, and I needed something a little bit different. I set my Tinder profile settings to liking girls and guys. I talked to girls and guys, and for a while because again I hadn't brought this back up to my mom. My mom still didn't know. All she had known is that one conversation I'd had with her, and we'd never talked about it again. At this time, I'd gone on a couple Tinder dates with some guys, and I tell my mom, you know, about these people, and I tell my mom that I met someone that I was talking to and interested in on Tinder. And my mom asked me what his name was. And I told my mom that her name was, not gonna say her name for you guys, but I told my mom that it was a girl. And she looked very surprised and shocked, but also like she was trying to be like cool about it, like, you know, like don't freak out. which I applaud her for. Thanks, Mom, if you're watching this still. I think that's how you felt about it, but yeah, I could be wrong. And so I tell my mom that I'm going to be going on a date with this girl. And at this point, my stepdad knew that I had been going on Tinder dates with guys. He knew I was going with guys. I, said to my mom, if, he asks me about this Tinder date that I'm going on, because he knows that I'm going, do I tell him that it's with a girl? Like, what do I say? She told me that I should go on the date and see how it goes and see how I feel before we cross the bridge of telling him. Which, like, again, no shame to my mom. If you're watching this, Mom, stop watching this video. But basically, again, it made me feel a little bit invalidated. It made me feel a little bit like, well, you didn't have that concern about me saying that when I was going on dates with these guys. Why do you have that concern? Because it's a girl, So I go on this Tinder date with this girl, and I really liked her. She was so sweet. We're, still like friendly on good terms. And I, really liked her. But at the same time, I felt like it was kind of unfair. She was understanding, that I didn't have tons of experience with girls, and that didn't bother her, which was awesome. And I fucking hate people that have a problem with you for not having, experience with things like that. Sorry, like, okay, my body count in general is not high. Like, she told me she didn't mind that, and there was still kind of a part of me that felt bad because I knew how I felt like my family felt about it. And I didn't ever want her to be uncomfortable. I remember on the 4th of July that year, my family was going to be really low key. My brother was away. So it was just me, my mom, and my stepdad home. And my mom was just going to make like some burgers and like 4th of July food. And we were just going to like hang out a little bit. And I asked my mom if it was okay if I invited this girl because her family lived in another state and she wasn't going to be going to see them for the 4th of July. And my mom, she agreed. So thank you, Mom. But I definitely felt so horrifically uncomfortable about it because I knew that she was telling my stepdad and I didn't know how he was feeling about it. And it was apparent to me that she probably thought he was going to have a less than stellar reaction to it. Although personally, I think she had a less than stellar reaction to it. Maybe that's just me and childhood trauma, We repressed that shit. I ended up going on a few dates with this girl. We kissed, we held hands, we cuddled, we had a great time, but I still just felt like maybe this wasn't the right or fair thing to bring someone into this very confusing and not really stable place in my life of me being bisexual. Because like in college, I would tell anyone, like all my sorority sisters, it was free knowledge to them. Anyone that met me, they knew. But I didn't talk to my family about it. I didn't talk to my mom about it. So what does this all, mean for me now? Now, like I said, I am dating a boy. I have a boyfriend. And I struggle with this a lot upon meeting new people and trying to have this conversation with them. So to beat a dead fucking horse here, bisexuality is real. Whether or not you're currently dating a guy or a girl, it doesn't matter. You can have a boyfriend and still like girls, and you can have a girlfriend and still like boys, because we're bisexual. We like both. Bi to both. Okay? So that's my little spiel for this. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this story. Hopefully, anyone out there who was doing exactly what I was doing, this is a video I would have been watching. So hopefully, if you are ever in that place and you stumble across this video, maybe this makes you feel any type of way. Maybe this helps you. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it was just an entertaining story. It's definitely one that I have literally never actually sat down and told to literal anyone before. And most of this is things that I have repressed. So we're getting our repression out because YouTube is therapy. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching if you stayed up to this point. And I will be trying to post more often. I'm getting back into it as we're dealing with our anxiety and mental health problems, you know. Yes, have more to look forward to. And if you haven't yet, I will be linking my website down below. Feel free to go ahead and check it out. And until then, see you guys later. Bye.